From our teaching kitchen at the Grand Rapids Downtown Market, this is the Plant Powered Challenge 2022, brought to you by Spectrum Health's Lifestyle Medicine Team.
Hello, and welcome to the Plant Powered Dinner Cooking Demonstration. I'm Elizabeth Suvedi, Manager for Culinary Medicine at Spectrum Health. I'm excited to introduce to you today Dione and Jahaven Haye from the Urban League of West Michigan. They will be cooking with me today as we prepare some super delicious plant-powered dinner recipes. I'd like to introduce to you Dione. Dione is a mom of 3 and is the program coordinator and tobacco treatment specialist for the Center for Health, Wellness, and Youth for the Urban League of West Michigan. Dione is extremely passionate about health, wellness, and youth and absolutely enjoys working for the Urban League of West Michigan. Dione loves serving her community and making an impact by empowering and driving change in the lives of others. Today, Dione and I will be preparing crunchy lentil tacos with a zesty avocado sauce. All right, well, Dione, it is time for us to make some dinner. Are you ready to start cooking?
I'm ready.
All right, well, you selected some amazing recipes, some of my family's favorites. We're gonna be making the classic crunchy lentil tacos today together. And also I know you share that you love avocados, so we're gonna make a zesty avocado dip with you as well to go on our tacos. Are you ready to jump right in?
I'm ready to jump right in.
All right, well with this, we're gonna start first by chopping up the onions so we can get the lentils cooking. So what we have here in front of us is we have a really large onion that we need to chop it up and make it a little bit smaller. So what we're gonna do is the end that is not the root end, we're gonna cut that little piece off of the end. And then we will cut the onion in half lengthwise, and we're just gonna keep half of it. Half of it you can set aside. And the other half, we're gonna take, the one that we're gonna keep, we're gonna take that outer peel off of it. So if you wanna peel that off, hopefully neither of us starts crying in this process. Sometimes onions can definitely make you cry a little bit. And then we're gonna put that flat side down on the cutting board. And when you hold your knife, you wanna make sure you've got a really nice grip on that knife. And we're gonna make some long cuts into this onion, but not through that root end. We're gonna leave that root end intact. And this just allows a nice, easy way to dice up an onion. So this is kind of hopefully a way to make it a little bit easier. Once we have those long cuts, we're gonna now cut it perpendicular. And so cutting the other way to essentially dice this onion up. And for this recipe, we need 1 cup of diced onion. And this half of an onion will probably be about that. Dione, do you guys ever do any Mexican, Tex-Mex type cooking in your house?
Actually, we do.
What type of things do you like to make?
We like to make our own guacamole dip, as well as actually use a lot of guacamole on the side of our nachos.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
Yeah.
All right, so what we're gonna do is we have a small saucepan here that we're gonna use, and we're gonna go ahead and put in a little bit of olive oil. So we're gonna put 1 tablespoon of olive oil in, and I've got that measured out in a little jar. When you are cooking with oil, you really wanna make sure that you use very little. Oil is a processed food, and so you don't need very much. And so we'll put that in there just to kind of make sure things don't stick. Alternatively, people could also use a water saute. So essentially just using a little bit of water in the skillet rather than the oil. One, it's a lot cheaper to cook that way, but also you don't put in all those extra calories. So that's a technique we like to teach in a lot of our culinary medicine classes. And Dione, we are honored to have you here in our Lifestyle Medicine Teaching Kitchen. This is where we teach a lot of our culinary medicine classes that we offer. And I know that you work with the West Michigan Urban League, and I would love for people to hear a little bit about the work that you do there. So maybe while we get our onions sauteing, if you want to just talk with us about the work you do and your role there.
Sure. So I am with the Urban League of West Michigan, as you mentioned, and some of the work that I do is to take lead on some of our health and wellness initiatives. And with that being said, of course, I am in the Health, Wellness, and Youth Development Department. And we often have our youth do some things that's going to benefit them in their future as it relates to healthy choices when it comes to physical activities, as well as picking certain foods. And some of the things that we do is often during the summer months is do our own urban gardening. They learn how to urban garden, and they learn how to make things that's from fresh vegetables and fruits.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, it's really interesting, I think, for kids to start to see at a very young age how food is grown, learn how to grow their own food. And I think it just makes them have that much more of a connection to the food that they're eating and the choices that they make. So it's great to see that you're doing that outreach like that. All right, so we've got our onions in there. You can give them a little stir there. There's a spoon there. I think oftentimes when people just smell onions cooking, that's enough to get people running into the kitchen. It smells so delicious. Just a simple saute of some onions. So we'll give that another couple minutes to cook. Dione, one thing I love to ask people that come in and cook with us in the kitchen is there any particular produce or anything that you just try to like and you just, for some reason, don't enjoy that much?
I would have to say cantaloupe.
Cantaloupe.
Yes.
And why is that?
Sometimes for me, I think the sweetness of the cantaloupe just overtakes my taste buds, and I think it's just too sweet. That's just for me, you know, maybe for some others, maybe not, but for me, yes.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I always love hearing people's likes and dislikes because, yeah, it kind of is all over the board, and things that I assume everybody likes, you know, you find out that's not the case. So that's great to hear. Any other favorite fruits or vegetables, things that you tend to go to quite a bit when you're cooking at home or eating?
Well, one of my favorite fruits is pomegranates. I love the pomegranate seeds. I love the flavor of the pomegranate, and then I love some sugar-free pomegranate drinks that they have out there on the market.
Great.
Yeah.
Now, do you peel your own pomegranates?
Yes, I do.
All right. Do you have a technique that you find works best?
Actually, my technique is a little bit different. I bite into it first, and I start from there.
That's awesome. Well, cool. Well, let's give our onions a little more stir. And then we can go ahead and add in some of our spices. So one thing that's nice is if you put the onions in now, we can kind of toast them in there a little bit. So the spices that we have that we're going to throw in today is a little bit of oregano, some black pepper, some onion powder, some cumin powder, and we're going to throw those all in there. And then for people who don't like spice, just leave out the things that make it the heat. So the black pepper, the red pepper flakes, you could opt to leave those out. I enjoy it spicy, so I left mine in there. Dione, do you like things that are spicy?
I do.
All right, well, let's put them all in then. We'll put them in our pot, get that stirring around. And when you can toast spices, it just gives another kind of complexity to the flavor of the things you're cooking with. So where you do have that extra time, I think it's nice to put them in there for just a minute or so and stir them around. Now, Dione, do you have any children? And if so, what do you find any, I guess, how do you inspire them if you do have children to kind of eat healthier?
Actually, I do. I have young adult children that's off on their own. And for me, I just really pretty much give them some options of, you know, what it's like to be healthy and what it's like to actually make, you know, certain healthy food choices. So I'm a believer in hands-on. So I might give them a recipe, but then that means they have to cook it themselves, and that way they're not dependent on me to cook it. Because I believe if you're looking to be healthy, you have to start somewhere. And I think starting with hands-on in the kitchen is one of the best ways to start.
That's great. Yeah, I love that. I've got 2 boys myself, and I try to pull them in the kitchen as much as possible. Sometimes they're not always excited to help me cook, but I oftentimes find that once they get in the kitchen, they get engaged. They don't mind it so much, and I think they do end up enjoying the actual final dish as well because they're excited about what they made and want to share that with the family. Cool. So let's get the lentils in there. So we want to get these lentils in. Lentils are a great source of fiber and protein. So we'll put these whole kind of green lentils in, 1 cup of that, and then we've got 2 cups of a vegetable stock that we're going to pour that in as well. And essentially what we would do here is we're just going to stir everything around to get it nicely mixed together. And then we're going to cover it with a lid. We'll bring it up to a simmer. And then once it reaches like kind of a boiling, we'll turn it down low and let it cook for about 20 to 30 minutes. Okay. The nice thing I find with lentils is that you can keep them in your home and you just, whenever you're ready to cook with them, you just pull them out of the pantry. They're ready to go. You don't have to go to the store. They're shelf stable. They're very inexpensive. Oftentimes people will say that it's expensive to eat healthy, and I would completely disagree. You can buy a can of beans for probably 59 cents at the store. And so, really that in relation to the cost of meat is much less. And you get that great fiber and protein that comes with eating things like lentils and beans. And a lot of people joining us today might have never cooked with lentils. So one, we'd love to hear in the chat. If you guys have questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat. We can try to address those. And also, if you have ways you've cooked with lentils that you enjoy, we'd love to hear about that. Have you cooked with lentils before, Dione?
I have.
What do you like to put them in?
I like lentils in soups. I actually love lentils in soups.
Oh, that sounds great. Plus, it's a great way, kind of like a natural thickener when you put them in the soup. So that's a great way to put them in as well.
Yes.
And really, this is what we're doing today is kind of essentially in place of where you might put a ground meat. So if you think that like maybe I make sloppy joes or spaghetti sauce or tacos and I might normally use a ground meat, using these kind of whole green lentils is a great way to keep the spices the same, all the flavoring the same, and just swap it out and put these green lentils instead. You can do what we're doing today, which is we're mixing all the spices together and kind of cooking it in there. Or what you can do is you can cook the lentils separately earlier in some water, drain that, and then you can incorporate that in the dish that you have, whether it's a soup like Dione mentioned or something else. So with that, I think we'd love to have you help us make a zesty avocado dip. So Dione, you mentioned you love avocados. I did notice today the avocados we have are not as ripe as it might be easier to work with them. And so we are going to do what we do in the kitchen when something might not be ripe enough is you just make the best of it that you can. So we do have a small food processor that if you want to put that in front of you, you can.
Okay.
And then we'll take the lid off of that. And what we're going to do is essentially open up this avocado, try to get all of the filling out, and then put this in this food process here that we have. So to do that with an avocado, you always want to make sure you keep the avocado on the cutting board. And so you never want to put it in your hand and end up cutting, the inside of your hand. So as you'll see here, I'm going to put it down and then just rotate that avocado around my knife. And by doing that, it'll open up pretty nicely just like that. And now I'm going to grab a spoon and I'm going to grab the insides. Oops, I keep grabbing. Here we go. I'm going to basically take the insides and scoop them out and put them into this food processor. Now, if someone does not have a food processor, no worries. You obviously want to make sure you have a nice ripe avocado, which can just happen by leaving it on the counter longer. But you could just use like a potato masher or a fork and just mash the avocado up and then put all the items in a bowl and mix them together. So you don't have to have a food processor. It just is going to speed up the process a little bit for us today, but I'd love people to know that there's other ways that you can make this. So getting the pit out of the avocado. Dione and I were talking about this earlier. There's different ways to get the pit out. One is you can use a spoon and scoop the pit out. The other way is you can take your knife and kind of whack it in the pit like this, and then it pulls that pit right out, and then I can kind of whack this over on a garbage can or on the side of a sink, and it just pops right off. Don't put it down the disposal though. Like if you have a sink with a disposal, that's not going to be good for your sink. You want to make sure that pit ends up in the garbage or compost. All right, so Dione, how do you know when your avocado is ripe and ready to work with it?
That's the coloring on the outside.
Okay.
Or also the firmness or the not so firmness on the outside. I should say. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, while we're working on getting this out, do you ever have nights that are busy? And if so, what do you find are some ways to still have a healthy dinner, but do it in a little bit quicker way?
For me, I like to pre-cut veggies, and then sometimes when I pre-cut the veggies, my thought process is that later on this evening when I'm home from work, I'll put a little bit of a veggie stir fry together.
Ooh, that sounds delicious. All right, so now we're going to add some cilantro. So some of the population does not enjoy cilantro. They think it tastes like soap. But do you like cilantro, Dione?
I actually love cilantro.
All right, let's put it in. So I've kind of got about what might be about a quarter cup, maybe a little bit more. I'm going to chop it up into some smaller pieces. You don't have to chop it really small because the food processor will do that for us. But I just kind of want to make sure I can squeeze it all in there. So again, you can kind of be more generous with the cilantro than not. And so we'll get that in there. And then the next thing we're going to add is a quarter cup of water. So once we have that in, we'll just pour some water in.
Let's finish first.
And then we're gonna add in a little bit of some lemon juice. All right, so lemon will just kind of give it some nice balance. It'll help it from not browning the avocado. And so with this lemon, I'm gonna cut the lemon in half. And you could either use your hands to squeeze the lemon right in there, or you can also use like a lemon or lime squeezer, which we have here, so I'll show how to use that. And essentially, I'm just gonna put that the lemon right in there, and then just holding it right over the food processor, we'll squeeze that in. All right. And this is a really nice dip that you can really, like Dione was saying, you could use it on so many things. So maybe if you make tacos, nachos, burritos, you know, maybe just a nice snack with some cut up veggies or something. This goes really well. All right, so we've got that. All right, Dione, how are you doing? Are you with me or are you still?
I think I'm with you. I think I'm
All
just
right,
there.
we got the lemon juice in. And then also if you want, you can add a little bit of salt. We would put half of a teaspoon of salt in. It is very important that you do measure out the amount of salt you're cooking with. Within culinary medicine, we want to make sure people are very conscious of the amount of sugar, salt, oils that they're adding, because those very quickly can add up. And with salt, you'll find that over time as you use less salt in your cooking, that you find that you don't need as much salt, that things will taste salty enough without putting a lot of extra salt. Same thing with sugar. You can kind of change your palate a little bit. As you start to cook with less sugar, you'll get used to things they'll taste sweet enough to you. Like if you have dark chocolate, you'll think it tastes sweet. Or to somebody else who eats a lot of sugar, they might think it's not very sweet. So you can kind of train your palate to go in different directions. All right, so I think, we're missing the garlic. Oh, we can't forget the garlic. Okay, so we do need to peel this garlic clove. There's a couple ways you can do this. You can either have the knife on the edge of the cutting board on the flat side and lean into it and smash it that way. You can also put it underneath the corner of your cutting board and then just lean into it like this, and it'll crack that garlic clove and it'll just come right out of that peel. Now the recipe calls for half of a teaspoon of garlic. This clove for me is on the larger side, so I'm only gonna use half of this, because when you're putting raw garlic in something, you really want to make sure you don't put too much in. Otherwise, it's really going to pop later. About a half an hour later, that garlic flavor really pops. And if it's too much garlic, I think people are not going to want to eat it. So we're going to put that garlic clove in there, put the lid on. It's going to get noisy for about 10 seconds while we blend this up. So bear with us. But when you're ready to blend, I'll blend at the same time. So we'll be extra noisy for everybody as we're blending this. Let me know when you're ready, Dione.
All right.
All right, are you guys all hungry yet? It smells amazing in here. Those spices are really filling up the kitchen with some great smells, and those onions. All right, we ready?
They're all
3,
ready.
2, 1, let's blend. All right, it's looking good. I think mine might be done. Oh, yum. Mine looks nice. I got some nice little bit of chunks in there, but not too much.
Yep.
And now we have to taste test. So make sure you have a spoon, and let's give it a try and see what you think of our Zesty Avocado Dip. Oh, that's good.
That is.
Kind of hits you in the back a little bit, the acidity from the lemon juice,
Yep.
that garlic. Now, if you like heat, you could also add like a jalapeno to it. You could add some red pepper flakes. So for people that like a little extra heat, I'd recommend they do that. All right, so that is done. Let's set that aside. And then I do want us to chop up a tomato to have that to go with our tacos as well. So, and probably before that, let's just give our lentils a quick stir just to check on them. Hopefully they're doing good. Mine are still cooking pretty nicely. And so all we're gonna do at this point, Dione, is we've got a tomato here. We're gonna chop this up. And when it comes to tacos, you can really take this recipe as a base and make it whatever you want. So you've made your nice spiced lentils. And then it's what toppings do you normally put on tacos? Maybe you like to put some lettuce, maybe some tomatoes, maybe some red onion, maybe a favorite salsa. Whatever you normally would do, I would go with that. We're just showing you some examples today. So with this tomato, we're gonna go ahead and cut that top core out. And then we're just gonna dice this up a little bit. And then we'll have this as a nice topping to go with this. All right, so Dione, do you ever get where, when it comes to dinner time, do you have any kind of favorites? I know you mentioned stir fry. Anything else? Do you do any kind of meal planning or prepping, or how do you kind of plan what you're going to eat for the week?
Sometimes I kind of start the new year off with meal planning, just different ways to be able to stay healthy. So meal planning for me just consists of some healthy choices and making sure that I have it ready for a 7-day.
Okay, all right.
7 days straight, yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you're well fueled.
Yes.
And Dione, I know you do tend to eat more plant-based foods.
Mm-hmm.
Was there anything that kind of over time moved you in that direction, or kind of what got you passionate about doing more plant-based eating?
I think for me, I'm a tofu lover. I love tofu. And I think that it started with that, and then it just kind of went from there. And I also did my own research on plant-based. And for me, plant-based is just a healthier route to go. And it's good, to try different things. And for me, plant-based is definitely different, but it actually works for me.
That's great to hear. I know for some people it can be overwhelming. They might be intimidated by it, but really what we're trying to teach with the Plant Powered Challenge is just having people go wherever they are today at this point and just starting to move the needle a little bit. So maybe maybe they eat white rice all the time right now. And so maybe it might be like, let's just switch to brown rice. Then, where you have that kind of full grain intact, that whole grain. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's the morning and somebody's eating a lot of cereal and maybe switching to something like eating old-fashioned oats in the morning, mm-hmm. And some fresh fruit and nuts and seeds. And so it's really just trying to teach people some of those different tips and techniques around how to do that, and just show them, that, but also the why. That's where we love to bring in all the various guest presenters and speakers. So we're so glad that you're able to cook with us today, and kind of really reach more people within the community. So with that, I think we need to get our taco shells heated up. So we're going to use some corn tortillas today. And so let's maybe move things around on our stovetop a little bit, that we have room to get the nonstick skillet there. And then we'll get the tortillas heating up next. All right. So here we go. All right. And so now we're going to so we have the nonstick skillet there. And then I'm going to turn it up to kind of like a medium-high temperature to get that heated up. And essentially, with the corn tortillas, we really want to make sure that we don't leave them out, because they will dry out a little bit because there isn't all that extra oil in there. So we're going to use a little bit of a nonstick spray. We have an avocado spray today that we'll kind of spray that skillet with. And that helps by using a nonstick spray to not use as much oil. And so I'm going to put in 2 of these corn tortillas. And then I'll spray the top of them as well, just a little bit. And that will just help them to cook a little bit, stay softened, and not dry out too much in that skillet. And we really encourage people when they're buying things to read the ingredient labels. So turn things around if you're buying a packaged item and see what's in it. And if you can't pronounce something, it's probably something that you don't want to purchase. So really just being mindful of, what people are buying and what they're consuming. And is that something I want to put in my body, or is that something I probably should leave on the shelf and not eat? When it's dinner time, the time to go shopping is probably not when you're hungry, right, Dione?
Yes.
Yeah. So with dinner time, we encourage people, like you were talking about, like that meal planning and prepping, is to really be thinking about it ahead of time, so that when it comes time to dinner, you already have ingredients in your home. And so you can just grab those things, whether they're from your refrigerator or pantry, and put a meal together. As opposed to feeling like, okay, I just finished working. Now I need to go to the grocery store and purchase things and then go home. And at that point, you probably didn't purchase the right things. You probably purchased some of those spontaneous type things when you were hungry. And so really encouraging people to, maybe shop on a full stomach, and that way hopefully you're making more of those decisions. Okay, so with that, I think we'll look at these tortillas as they heat up. When they start to warm up, we'll want to flip them over a little bit. The lentils, I think, have kind of done a nice job cooking. And we just really want, with lentils, what I love about them is you cannot mess them up. If you overcook them, that's totally okay. They kind of become more like a refried bean type texture, and that's perfectly fine. So you obviously don't want to have them when they're too firm. They're going to be really chewy. You want to make sure they cook long enough, but within about 20 to 30 minutes, they probably will have cooked really nicely, and they've really nicely softened up. So, all right. So with that, I think we probably can start to assemble our tacos. We do have some limes here if we want. Maybe we'll slice one of these limes up. because we made the Zesty Avocado Dip, we may not need an extra lime, but I do want to show people that if they're making this at home, they might not make the Zesty Avocado Dip. They might want to put some lime on. It adds that nice acidity to it. So I have one lime here. I'm just going to cut it from one end to the next. And then I think with this, mine's pretty small, so I'm just going to cut it each half in half. So we've got 4 pieces here. And essentially these you could serve this with the dish. So that way people could have that on the side as a garnish and just squeeze some fresh lime juice on top. And then the last thing is we did put cilantro in our Zesty Avocado dish, but why don't we cut up a little bit of cilantro that we might want to put on a garnish at the end as well. So we'll take a little of this cilantro here. I've just got maybe like 4 strands of cilantro. I'm going to cut it in half, and then I'm actually going to cut it in half again, and then just make a really small bundle. And then from here, we'll chop it up, the leaves and the stems. And we'll set this aside. This will kind of be the garnish that we can kind of sprinkle on the tacos at the end. With plant-based eating, you know, for people that might not be as used to eating this way, presentation is kind of an important aspect of it. People do eat with their eyes, and they're drawn into the food that they eat. And so if you do have kind of those nice pops of color, people are going to be more apt to be excited about the food, as opposed to if it's all kind of one color, they might not be quite as excited to try the food out. So that's something to think about, how you're balancing your plate with different colors. All right, so are you ready? Are you getting hungry, Dione? Excited to make some dinner?
I am.
Awesome. Okay, so let's grab a plate. We've got a plate here set aside for you. And then if you have your tortillas, we can put those on our plate. So we've got our cooked lentils. I'm gonna grab my spoon here. And you'll basically see it's just kind of a nice thick mixture that will hold really nicely in the tacos. It's got some nice red colors in there from those spices. Nice, hot and steamy. And so we'll put about a 1/4 cup of lentils in each taco. How does it smell down there, Dione?
Smells really good.
All right.
Yes.
This is gonna be your Friday night dinner tonight.
That's it. And I'm okay with that.
All right. And then the next thing we'll do is, why don't we go ahead and put some of the tomatoes on top of the lentils. And then why don't we put a nice kind of generous dollop of the Zesty Avocado Dip on top. We could also set those maybe 2 lime slices on the plate in case anybody wants to have some lime with this. This will be your dinner tonight, so you get to try this out. And then the last thing is just some of that garnish of that fresh cilantro that we chopped up. How's it looking down there, Dione?
It's looking pretty good.
Great.
Yes.
So Dione, anything else about, I know the work that you do with the West Michigan Urban League is very important work in the community. Anything specific for people who maybe don't understand what the Urban League does as much, or might give them more background of some of the things you guys focus on? Anything you want to share with the community?
Yes, I just think the community needs to know that the Urban League is a resource agency, and we offer various resources. And a couple of those resources that I would like to mention is health and wellness. That is the department that I'm currently in. We have housing. We actually have employment, and we also have education. So it's very important for the community to know what the Urban League actually offers. And those are some of the resources that we offer to our community.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I am honored that you were able to join us today in our teaching kitchen here within the lifestyle medicine practice at Spectrum Health and join us for this cooking segment. You did a wonderful job. I'd love to see, do you have your finished dish you want to hold up for the camera and show everybody all of our delicious food to eat? Awesome. Okay, looks good. All right, well, with that, let's take a break and sit down and enjoy some dinner together. I'd like to introduce to you Jahaven Haye. Jahaven is a young native from Negril, Jamaica, who prides himself as a poised leader with a distinct chameleon-like work ethic. Jahaven currently works as the Youth Development Specialist for the Urban League of West Michigan's Center of Health, Wellness, and Youth. Jahaven is a recently first-generation student-athlete graduate from Grand Valley State University and earned a Bachelor of Science degree in 2019. Jahaven also facilitates the Summer Youth Program for the Urban Fellows and our Girls Rock Youth programs. Jahaven also focuses on developing programs that are critical to addressing systemic and societal issues faced by the students of color. These critical life skills surround professional branding, personal branding, STEM, entrepreneurship, and college readiness, and so much more. Jahaven believes that every child can learn and must learn a mantra instilled in him from an early age. Jahaven is passionate about working with young people, especially at-risk males like himself. We are excited to have you in the kitchen, Jahaven. I'm looking forward to making one of my favorite dinner recipes with you, baked Vera risotto with mushrooms and kale. All right, now it's time to make a super delicious dinner dish. And I'm honored to be cooking here today with Jahaven. Jahaven, welcome to the Grand Rapids Downtown Market Teaching Kitchen, home of the Lifestyle Medicine Practice. Great to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited. I'm looking forward to cooking.
Awesome. And I heard this is like your TV debut, right?
Yeah, so I need a good take because I need some leverage for when I get into the celebrity realm.
All right. All right. Well, you got to start somewhere, and we're going to get your autograph afterwards. So,
I won't forget.
Well, great. We're so glad you're cooking with us today. This has been a really enjoyable experience. And with that, we need to start cooking this dish, so we got to get the onion chopped up. So I put in front of you, there's a large onion there. We only need about half of the onion. So what we'll do is we're just going to cut the onion in half, kind of horizontally down from one end of the root end to kind of the other top of the onion. And you can set half that onion aside. We don't need it. And then the other half, we're going to take that outer peel off of it. And you can just kind of set that in the sink if you want, that peel. And hopefully it comes off easily for you. And then we're going to cut off, there's a little stem end, not the root end, but we're going to cut that little tip off the end, but leave the root end intact. And then essentially what we're going to do is we're going to try to do some slices down through the onion, kind of running towards that root end, but don't cut into the root. And this just makes for a really easy way to dice up an onion. Then once you've got that done, you can move your hand so that the knife is kind of perpendicular to those cuts that you just did. And then you can just slide the knife down, dicing up that onion, hopefully relatively easy. Do you do much cooking at home, Jahaven?
I do some cooking, not a lot every time, but when I do cook, it's pretty good.
Pretty good. All right. Well, that's great to hear. Do you have any like kind of favorite go-to dishes that you like to make?
For me, I've been messing around with salads a lot because I found it super interesting. So between just doing like a Southwest avocado salad and just doing limes and adding cranberries and stuff like that, I like that a lot. So I do that a lot.
That's great. Yeah, that's great to hear. There's so many great combinations out there. And, salads definitely are a great hearty way, if you make them nice and hearty to fill you up, but also get that great nutrients. Okay, so there is a bench knife on your cutting board. This is just a nice, helpful tool in the kitchen to help move things around. So I'm going to take this onion on the bench knife and then move it over to our pot that we have. The pot, we should probably get that on and get that heated up to kind of like a medium-high temperature. And one thing I want to make sure people do as well that I did before we got started is I got the oven heated to 400 degrees. So when you do start this recipe, and we'll share all of the recipes with everybody, do make sure you get the oven heated to 400 degrees and then get everything else started. And that by time it's ready and done, the onions, we'll be able to put them in the oven and let that bake. So one thing I like about this recipe is it's kind of like you get things prepped and ready and then you throw it in the oven and you can be working on other things. Maybe it's cleaning up the dishes, maybe cleaning up the kitchen, maybe it's helping a kid with homework. So it kind of gives you some time to do other things while you're waiting for things to cook and bake. So we've got that to like a medium-high temperature. Now we are not going to put oil in there. We're going to try a water saute technique if you're up for that, Jahaven.
Let's do it.
So, okay, so I've got some water here. I'm going to put about a tablespoon of water and not all this water. It's really just the goal is to have it not stick. And so we'll just put enough in there and then kind of give a little bit of a stir, and that'll get those onions sauteing in there. So, Jahaven, I believe that you were pretty active as an athlete. Maybe can you tell us some of the sports that you used to play, if it's more than one, and maybe how you, as you were kind of getting into sports, where food fell into that in terms of nutrition and being mindful of things like that?
Yeah, so most definitely. I ran track at Grand Valley from 2018 until 2019 when I graduated. So diet and nutrition was a huge part of, making sure that you're an athlete ready to compete. Especially, we had a saying, you got to fuel your body with what you want it to. So you can put in what you're going to get out. So basically what that means is, I stay away from sweets, stay away a lot from junk food. And really my coach pushed me a lot to start eating spinach and cabbage and stuff like that because he felt like that gave me a lot of energy. So I really like that. So just being an athlete, we focus a lot in our diet on nutrition because, you need your body to be able to produce what you need from it, and your food gives you the ability to produce energy. So huge take on food and nutrition.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool to see. I know that a lot of athletes out there find that when they do start to eat more whole plant-based foods, they actually see, increased performance, ability to recover a lot quicker from the workouts that they have. And so that's great to hear that you found a similar thing. Okay, so as we've got this going, let's get some garlic minced up. So there's one garlic clove in front of you. Garlic and onion tend to go in so many savory dishes. And so it's nice when you can kind of have some shortcuts to make it a little bit quicker. So we have a garlic clove, which comes off of a garlic bulb. I'm gonna put it underneath my cutting board here, like the corner of the cutting board, and I'm just gonna lean into it a little bit. And by doing that, it just smashes that garlic clove, which allows it to come out of the peel. We don't need that peel, we're gonna set that aside. And now we're just gonna really roughly chop this garlic clove up. So you don't have to be perfect about it. Just use that knife to kind of rock it all around on that garlic, mincing it up. And then once we have it minced up, we'll put that in the dish. So Jahaven, do you have some times where you're busy, short on time? And if so, do you have any kind of, quick go-to, whether it's meals or things you tend to keep in your house to have things ready, or snacks that help you kind of stay full until the next meal?
So yeah, like I mentioned, I love doing salads. So whether it's like picking up a to-go salad from a local fresh market or something like that, and just trying different ones, but I always go to salads. I like munching on like nuts and trail mix and different things like that. So I do that a little bit, but salads would be my go-to. Me and my coworker talk all the time, like, yeah, we're gonna get a $5 salad or something on lunch. So usually huge on salad, especially, sometimes if it's after work, it gets dark pretty quick now. Getting off work during dinner time, I might just fuel up on a salad real quick because I don't have a huge, intake on food a lot. I could just eat something and I'm kind of pretty much fueled because I kind of munch during the day. So just that with the salads. Great.
Awesome. Well, that's terrific to hear. All right, so let's make sure we give those onions a stir. Once you get that garlic in there, you can give that a little bit of a stir. And then we're also going to add some white wine. So white wine, you can just buy an inexpensive cooking wine or just an inexpensive white wine. And it just has that nice, like, kind of umami type taste. So when you're cooking plant-based, you do want to think about how you're getting different flavors and building different flavor profiles and building complexity in the dish. And so white wine, red wine are great things to cook with. So we have half a cup of white wine that we're going to put in with the onions. And then we also have some vegetable stock. So we have 4 cups of some vegetable stock. We'll go ahead and add that as well. Oh my gosh, the smells are fantastic. I love that combination of the onions and the white wine. They come together so nicely. And then we also have the farro. So farro is a type of a whole wheat. This is one that I really like to use a lot in my kitchen because it takes only about 20 minutes to cook. And so it doesn't take a long time. You're not waiting forever for it to be done. Sometimes things like brown rice take a little bit longer. And I still cook with brown rice, but if it's the weekday and I don't have as much time, I might pull in a farro instead. All right, so we've got the wine, the garlic. We're gonna let that cook for a little bit. I think we got the vegetable stock in there. And I think at this point we have everything in here that we need. That essentially all we're gonna do now is we're gonna throw this in that oven that we heated up. And then we're gonna let it cook in the oven for a little bit. And then we'll pull it out later and we'll do some other things while we're waiting for it to cook. So with that, let's get the lid on it. And we can turn it off. Actually, what we can do is while we slide it off, we can put our other skillet on there and just turn that skillet to like a really low temperature for now. And then once you're ready, we'll walk this over to the stove and to the oven, and we'll get this cooking in the oven. All right, so we've got those in the oven. We're gonna let them bake for 20 minutes in the oven. And now we can get some of the other items ready for this dish. So let's get the mushrooms ready. So with mushrooms, they're very porous. You do not need to rinse them or wash them. I do have a dry paper towel here that we'll use just to kind of like wipe any dirt off the mushroom. So go through your mushrooms, If you see any dirt chunks, just go ahead and brush them off. These mushrooms for me look pretty clean, so I'm not really seeing all that much there. And this just is a great way to prep them. So mushrooms also, we were talking about umami earlier, they kind of pack a nice umami flavor. For people who don't love mushrooms, I often tell them if they kind of chop them up really small, they really kind of disappear within the dish. If you really enjoy them, then you might want to leave them maybe halved or quartered, and you'll be able to kind of taste them a little bit more and have a little bit more of that texture. But for some people, they don't always love that texture. All right, so we got this all set. Jahaven, one thing I'd love to hear, I'll talk about chopping up this mushroom. I will show everyone how to chop one. But then I'd love to hear from you kind of more about your role at the West Michigan Urban League. So with this mushroom, I'm going to just cut it in half, and then I'm going to kind of do some slices like this. So we'll do that and just kind of keep chopping them up. And while we do that, Jahaven, if you're willing, if you can chop and chat, I know it can be challenging sometimes. We would just love to hear from you about the work you do at the Urban League and yeah, more about what your role is there.
Definitely. Let's give it a shot. I think I could do it. But at the Urban League of West Michigan, I work as a youth development specialist. So primarily in my role, I oversee 2 youth programs, Our Girls Rockin' Urban Fellows, grade 9 through 12 students that we help with professional development, personal branding, entrepreneurship, anything that really takes them to the next level, whether it's college, trade school, or employment, whatever that might be for them, that's what we help them with. So we focus a lot on STEM as well. So during the summer, we have 8 weeks that we focus primarily seeing our students every day, Monday through Friday. And that's when we're able to have more opportunities and expose them to more things. So if you are interested in our summer youth program, you could always reach out to us at the Urban League of West Michigan. As for myself, Jahaven Haye or Miss Dione Ford, and then we'll get you connected and give your youth some opportunities.
Oh, that's terrific. I'm so glad to hear that. I think that's so important. You know, not everybody gets the same training, you know, in their homes, maybe whether it's from family members kind of helping to coach them, whether it's preparing for job interviews or just, you know, that kind of business professionalism. And it's something I'm very passionate about, people learning at a young age. So I'm glad to hear that you guys are in the community teaching some of those skills, because some of those are just skills, like you just have to keep practicing them. And the more that you do them over and over again, the more that you feel more confident, more comfortable. You get that elevator, you know, speech down, whatever it might be, to really help people get to know you better as a person. So that sounds like great work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, so we're gonna get these mushrooms sauteing. So essentially what we need to do is we're gonna get that skillet that we put on. We're gonna get that cranked up a little bit, and maybe we'll put that up to like a medium-high temperature. And then we're gonna get those mushrooms added, and we're also gonna put the thyme in. Do you have the thyme? That's my my not so funny cooking joke for the day.
I laughed.
All right. So, all right. So we've got some fresh thyme here. We'll put that urban, and it just is a nice combination, that thyme along with those mushrooms. Put that in there, and then we'll add a little bit of water to do that water saute technique again. And really at this point, we're just going to let this kind of saute for a little bit. So this will take a little while for these mushrooms to cook. We can probably turn it up a little bit higher.
Okay.
And in the meantime, we can get our kale all chopped up. So we do want to put some kale in. And it sounds like, Jahaven, you're already like consuming quite a bit of greens. You mentioned you eat quite a lot of salads, and salads are a great way to get green leafy vegetables into your diet. And for some people, they don't always want to have it in a raw form. And so I like this recipe because it allows people to have some greens in something, but it's kind of mixed in with some whole grains and some mushrooms and onions and other things. So what we're gonna do is I pulled all the kale out that we just had rinsed in the colander. And with kale, you can use everything, the leaves and the stems. All of it is edible. It's all delicious. With the stems, what I'll do is I will kind of chop off the ends and then bring them into the rest of the bundle to kind of make it easier to chop. It's more helpful if you have kind of a nice tight bundle that you can dice up. And then I tend to chop them pretty small. Maybe these would be considered like 1/4-inch type pieces with the stem. And we're just gonna kind of chop this whole thing up. And with the kale, kale doesn't take very long to cook. So this actually goes in the end. That's why that farro is cooking with the onions, because they can cook for a while and a lot of that great flavor will pop out of that garlic and onions. But then these other items don't take as long to cook. So we put them in at the end afterwards. And then once I've chopped it all that way, I then turn my knife perpendicular and I kind of chop up the greens a bit more. I have 2 boys at home and they're pretty open to eating all different types of things, but I try not to have like any really big pieces of green leafy vegetables. I try to have it chopped a little bit smaller so it's a little bit easier for them to chew and have them not hopefully complain as much. So they're pretty good sports about it, but. All right, so we're gonna stir those mushrooms, make sure they're coming along nicely. Can you smell that?
No.
The thyme in there, it's got such a beautiful smell to it.
I love thyme, actually.
Jahaven, I know one of the things in the community also, for some people, it can be challenging sometimes to have access to, good, healthy food. Sometimes we talk about, whether it's like food swaps or food deserts. Any kind of resources or places that you're familiar with in the community that people might want to outreach to if they are having troubles with kind of getting access to healthy food?
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm gonna throw a fact out there, but 1 in every 6 students that is in high school does not have access to healthy food options. So that's a huge problem, especially obesity is an issue in our city of Grand Rapids as well. But there are different organizations that are helping to address this issue. So the YMCA, for example, they have a Cooking Matters series that is targeted towards low-income families where they're helping them learn how to meal prep. They're taking them to the grocery stores to help them to look at items and learn different facts. Our students actually went through that program and they were able to do it with their families. And the great part about it is the kids were able to be at home and try these recipes as they learned them. There's the veggie vans that they do as well. Kids Food Basket. There's so many other resources out there that are, intentionally looking to address food insecurity and some issues to access as well. So if you don't know and you want to know more, I'd say reach out to us at the Urban League of West Michigan or even to Elizabeth as well. I'm pretty sure she knows a lot of resources in the community.
That's great. Yeah, thank you. It is, I think, when people start to realize there are quite a few resources out there. I also volunteer at the Community Food Club.
Yep.
That's another great resource for people that need access to healthy food on a budget. They have a lot of great produce. I'm always amazed when I'm volunteering there, like how much whole grains and fresh fruits and vegetables that they have. It's really nice to see that. So I think the mushrooms have sauteed really nicely. So I think at this point, what we can do is we're gonna check on our risotto to see how that's coming along. And if that's looking good, we can pull that out of the oven. And then we can add some of these other components in there, and then we'll let it cook for another 10 minutes. So why don't we go check on that real quick, and then we can come back and hopefully finish everything up.
Let's do it.
Oh, this looks delicious. I'm so excited. It looks wonderful. Jahaven, how does yours look?
Let's see. Oh, yeah. I've never cooked it before, so it actually looks really good as well.
Oh, wow. Yum. Ooh, it's hot. All right, so with that, let's add a couple more things to this. So we've got the mushrooms we sauteed.
Yeah.
We'll pull that over and we'll add those mushrooms. Oh my gosh, I could eat these just on their own. They smell so good. And the nice thing with this, Jahaven, is there anything else like, let's say you just made the farro dish and you didn't have the mushrooms or the kale here. Are there other vegetables you could think that you could add to this that would be good?
Let's see.
Any other vegetables you like to eat?
Like I said, I'm big on spinach. I'm weird I had enough greens. I know you say I had too much greens, but I love spinach so much that that's something I try to put in all my meals every time. So I'll throw some of that in there. I would throw some black pepper on here too, when I'm talking about veggies, but that's what I put in here, some spinach.
Okay, great, awesome.
Give it some more of that like bulky feeling.
Well, that's what we try to encourage people is we try to tell them like a lot of our recipes are viewed as kind of like have them be just like a base recipe, but then customize it to what you like and what you have in your kitchen. So you might not have all these things in your kitchen. Maybe you have other vegetables and, feel free to throw those things in here. Maybe you've got some carrots or celery or maybe some bell pepper. Any of those things might go really nicely in here. So I'm going to put the kale in and then just be careful. Make sure you use that hot pad so you don't burn yourself on the hot pot. We're going to stir this in. And then we're also gonna add in some nutritional yeast. So we'll put in here 1/4 cup of nutritional yeast. And this just kind of gives it that nice cheesy type flavor. So with a lot of plant-based cooking, we encourage people to steer clear of cheese. Cheese is really high in saturated fat. And so with this nutritional yeast, it kind of gives it that umami type taste, but not adding all that saturated fat to the dish. All right, so we've got that in there. And then let's also add a little bit of lemon juice. So there is a lemon in your colander. So if you want to grab that, we are going to, let me just set this aside so everybody can see my cutting board space, hopefully a little bit better. All right, I'll set this over here. Got all these great things going on here. All right, so let's cut this lemon in half. And then we will squeeze the lemon into our pot. I'll bring it over here so you can all hopefully see it. All right, so we're gonna use, you can either use your hands to squeeze the lemon, or we have this lemon juicer. And you just put that lemon, the cut side facing down into the holes, and then you just squeeze that right over top of that dish. And when you cook, you really wanna make sure you're thinking about how you're balancing the dish. Like, Jahaven, have you ever had a dish and felt like it's missing something, like it needs something, it doesn't quite taste very good?
Yeah, like it was just like I mentioned, spinach. Like I use that to bulk up a lot of stuff. But yeah, sometimes it's like it's missing something. And it's like that's the great thing about cooking, because you can be creative as you want and add and take away what you don't like. So that's what I like about cooking as well. But definitely I've been there before.
Well, and that's why we try to always encourage people, like, always taste stuff, because if you taste it and you don't like it, there's a really good chance that no one else is gonna like it. So that's where we love to have the tasting spoons in the kitchen. Give things a try. So let's go ahead. The recipe calls for 1/2 teaspoon of salt.
Okay.
So we can go ahead and put that in. And again, we want to always be measuring our salt because we don't want to overdo the salt. And then black pepper. So I know you mentioned maybe this could use some black pepper. I think you're spot on. So the recipe calls for 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. I love black pepper, so I'm actually going to put 1/2 teaspoon in. So people at home watching, they can kind of put whatever they want in.
I'm going to.
All right. So we're going to give this a little stir. How's it looking over there?
It looks really good. Like I've never made this before, but it looks very good.
Well, I'm so thankful that you were willing to come in and just jump right into this culinary medicine world of cooking. It's a lot of fun cooking with you.
It feels like a stress reliever. Like that's what I'm saying. Like there's so many things that you can do with cooking, just as a hobby or just something that you use to take a mental break from something.
Exactly. Okay, so once we have that all done, I think at this point now we're going to put this back in the oven for 10 more minutes. So we'll throw that lid back on. We'll put this in the oven, and then when it's done, and we get to enjoy and eat it. So we have a few minutes that we can put this in, chat for a little bit, and then we'll pull it back out and be completely done. All righty, let's see how we did. Woo! Looks good. How does yours look, Jahaven?
Ooh, this looks really good.
Awesome.
We feed a lot of people too.
All right. Well, let's maybe get our bowls and we can portion out. Make sure you have a tasting spoon as well. Jahaven, while we're scooping this out, do you have any hobbies? What do you do when you're not working?
Actually, I do photography. So when I'm not working on the weekends, a lot of times I just try to take pictures. So I take pictures of anything. So I like freelance. So I do a lot of graduation from people that are from GVSC or JRCC. I do a lot of fun stuff as well, like portrait and family shots. So that's kind of what my hobby is a little bit on the weekends.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. I know there's never enough great photographers out there. So I'm sure people enjoy you being there to capture their special moments like that.
Yes.
All right. Well, we're going to have to give this a taste. Let me know when you're ready to dig in.
Let's do it.
All right. You first. What do you think?
It's good.
Oh, that's so good. Like that complex, like you get those notes of the like white wine, a little bit of that nutritional yeast. It kind of gives it that like rich type flavor.
Yeah, and the mushrooms aren't, I thought there would be a little bit, but they aren't bad. It's really good. I like it a lot.
Delicious. Well, the one question I have to ask you before we end is the one that I've been trying to ask most people when we're cooking together is there any fruit or vegetable that you keep trying to like and you just simply don't yet?
Yes, actually, this past summer, me and my students and Miss Dione, we went to Blandford Nature Preserve, and they were giving us a bunch of different fruits and veggies to try, and beet was one of them. I was like, I don't want to try that because like, oh, you like it, you like it. I'm like, all right, let's try it, but horrible, absolutely not recommended for me. Not something I like. Don't think I'll ever like it, but other people do, so that's okay.
Well, we're going to keep working on you with that because I might have to send you home with some beet recipes today because I used to feel the same way as you. And I find sometimes it was the same thing for me eating tofu. Like I didn't like tofu the first few times I had it, and I just assumed I never would like it. But then I had it prepared a way that I actually enjoyed it, and I found it was nice. And so I think for some people, it's just finding the recipes that work for them with the right flavors. For which they might enjoy something. So I'm going to send you home with some beet recipes today that it's going to be your homework to try making them.
All right, I trust you, so I'm going to do this just for you.
All right, awesome. Well, Jahaven, I really appreciate you coming with us today to cook in the Teaching Kitchen. This is a great dinner. This is a great example of how hearty, delicious, and filling a plant-based meal can be. So I appreciate you being open to coming in today. You've done a wonderful job cooking. Anytime you want to come back, you are more than welcome to come back in our Teaching Kitchen. So thank you.
Thank you so much. We're so grateful from the Urban League of West Michigan that we're here.
Great. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Take care.